Hi, my name is Bridget, and I will be doing a book report on the waters of Wisconsin, the future of our aquatic ecosystems and resources. It is a book that is a report done by the Wisconsin Academy of Sciences, Arts and Letters. It was written about the different ways that we use water in Wisconsin and our responsibility to water as a resource. The book discusses the different types of water we have in Wisconsin, rivers, lakes, streams, and the Great Lakes, and how each of them is used as a different resource. We discuss in this book the future of Wisconsin's water, how it is changing based on different environmental factors, and the different things that need to be changed in order to keep the waters of Wisconsin clean and usable for everyone in the state and outside of the state. The water inside of Wisconsin has a great impact on not only our food source in Wisconsin and our ecosystems, but the food sources and ecosystems of other states that surround us and the waterways that come from Wisconsin and feed into waterways outside of Wisconsin. The questions I wanted to answer by reading this book are: how has deforestation affected the aquatic ecosystem? And is there more to the aquatic ecosystem than just water quality? How does the area outside of the water affect the ecosystem within the water itself? Are there factors that impact this ecosystem? Every 2 years, Wisconsin must submit a list of the lakes and different water sources and what their point source pollution is and how much pollution they have in them to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And if they don't meet the standard, then they have to make changes to the way that we treat the waterways in that area. All ecosystems in Wisconsin are interconnected, and that means that when one changes, another is also inevitably changed. Climate change affects the waterways in Wisconsin because of how long ice lasts, the temperature changes. In the past couple of years, we have been 7 degrees Fahrenheit above normal, which has changed how long ice lasts on the Great Lakes, and therefore changes when the melt is and how long fish are around, and changes a lot of different things in our ecosystem. The United States Environmental Protection Agency is concerned with 2 different types of pollution: point source pollution and non-point source pollution. Point source pollution is any single identifiable source from which the pollutants are discharged, like a power plant, a place where things are being dumped. Non-point source pollution is runoff from rain that carries pollutants to the waterways. So if the soil is polluted and the rain carries the pollutants in the soil into the waterway, that would be non-point source pollution. The next part of this book discusses the status of Wisconsin's waterways. It uses different figures and graphs and maps of Wisconsin showing the different waterways and the different status of them. Groundwater and surface water contaminants are a really big part of the different graphs shown in this book. This book contains a lot of pictures showing how much of Wisconsin is considered polluted by point source pollution and how much of it is considered polluted by non-point source pollution, and the different ground and surface water contaminants that affect that area of Wisconsin. This is important because we can track how much of an area is polluted and the ecosystems around that area, such as forests and lakes, that would be impacted by those different pollutant sources. Another part of Wisconsin that would be affected by this groundwater pollution would be irrigation. 99% of the irrigation comes from groundwater in Wisconsin. Other uses for water in Wisconsin are recreation and water treatment. The laws that govern the Great Lakes include laws that govern the consumption of different fish and wildlife, and also the amount you can consume. So a fish has to be a certain length or a certain amount of pounds in order for you to keep it. Otherwise, you have to return it based on how many fish are in that area, and also the amount that is being fished from that lake, stream, or waterway. We have these regulations so that the population can develop and isn't being stunted based on the amount that we use for recreation. The next part of this book discusses the future of Wisconsin's waterways. Our approach to conservation and aquatic ecosystems should consider not only the aquatic ecosystems, but the hydraulic system, which keeps everything going the way it's supposed to go. It is also a very complex system that affects all areas of the waterways in Wisconsin, and so that's an important thing to remember when deciding what to do with Wisconsin's waterways. Factors that change the aquatic ecosystems are change in loss of habitat because of housing developments, urbanization, transportation, agriculture, the different ways that we redirect water in order to use it for our crops and feeding animals, and economic development. Another way that changes our aquatic ecosystems is pollution. When we use waterways to dump toxic chemicals or different types of waste pollution, just like littering, and when we pour things into our water, that can cause a change in the aquatic ecosystem. Overfishing causes a change to the population of fish in the water, and then fish that feed on other fish have less food, therefore changing that part of the ecosystem. Overharvesting, invasive species, disease, and climate change are all other things that change aquatic ecosystems. The last part of this book discusses water policies, and there is an entire section just about the different laws regarding the Wisconsin waterways, and to list them would take me a half hour. But basically, each part of Wisconsin's waterways has a different law that affects it. In the upper part of Wisconsin, there are different laws that affect those waterways than the middle part of Wisconsin, than the lower part of Wisconsin. And each one of these policies is specific to that waterway. And some of them are overarching laws. You have to have a fishing permit. You have to have a boating permit. Things like that. You need to take all the mussels off your boat before you put your boat from one area to another area in order not to introduce exotic species that could have a insane impact on the stream in another area. There is also a Waters of Wisconsin timeline in the back of this book, which I found very interesting. And it just talks about the beginning of the start of this book and all the research that they did starting in spring of 2000 and ending in April of 2023 when this report came out, and just discussing the different times they did the research, the different committees, and the different public forums that they had over the lifetime of creating this book. Another interesting part of the end of this book is how it discusses the different things that we could change and how not all the decisions that will be made will be the same for every group. And the decisions made by one group have to understand the consequences that they put in place for another group. So the consequences and the decisions must be discussed together by all groups, the National Park Service, in order to understand the varying degree of responsibility that people have for these consequences. Also, they discuss that just because something is a trend, so let's say right now we're warming up, and the trend is global warming, and we're getting warmer, and the nights are getting warmer, and therefore it is affecting our aquatic ecosystem. Just because it's getting warmer doesn't mean it will always get warmer. A trend doesn't necessarily predict the future of an environment. To answer my questions posed at the beginning of this book, does deforestation have effect on aquatic life? Yes. Early Wisconsin history as a state, factors like deforestation, soil erosion, pollution, wetland conversion, and overfishing led to the degradation of the health of Wisconsin's aquatic ecosystems and wetlands before we had laws in place to protect those areas. Secondly, is there more to aquatic health and ecosystems than just water quality? Yes. Runoff, pollution of the air, pollution of the wetlands around the waterways all have a large effect on an aquatic ecosystem. So does overfishing. There are many, many aspects to an aquatic ecosystem than just the health of the water. And there's a lot of things that impact the health of the water than what we see.